Hello everyone, my name is Álmos Tóth. I'm a guitar player from the Venti Chiavi guitar trio, and also I'm a university student. I'm learning in the University of Pécs, where I'm doing my doctoral studies right now. My doctoral thesis is about early 17th century Basso Continuo on the classical guitar. There's an argument to be made that you should only play this kind of music on early music instruments. Since the historically informed performance revolution, this is the tendency that early music pieces are best when they are played on their required early music instruments. And I'm totally in agreement with this one, but sometimes we don't have the option to choose these instruments. For example, I don't own a lute or a theorba, and even if I did, I couldn't play it really properly because of my fingernails. And such, I couldn't perform these pieces even if I love them very much, and I do love them very much. So I think a very good option is to adapt these pieces to modern instruments, because I think music is written for the people to enjoy and not for the instruments. So with this statement that we can play these pieces on the classical guitar freely, I think let's jump right into it. And the first thing I want to talk about is the things that you are required to be able to do on your instrument in order to play these pieces. So first of all, you have to know the chords. In early 17th century music, there are really 5 types of chords you need to know. The root chords, major and minor root position chords, first inversion chords, the major and minor, and the first inversion of the diminished chord. I want to show you all the points I have for all the chords with one chord alone, and that will be the major root position chord. But you have to know this stuff with all the rest of the chords that I have just mentioned. So let's start with the E major chord. This is probably the most well-known chord in the guitar if you ask a starter. And rightfully so, it's very easy. It has all the strings in it. It sounds very full. And for our purposes, it's the best because in this one, I can show you all the positions that we are required to know in this chord. For example, we don't just have to know that this is an E major chord. We have to know that now we are playing the soprano in an octave to the bass. Now we are playing the 5th to the bass. Now we are playing a 3rd to the bass. So this chord is able to produce all 3 positions when I have the octave, the 5th, or the 3rd in the soprano. Why do we need this? That's because in 17th century music, you have to apply the rules of counterpoint to the accompaniment. And I'm just going to use a fictional chord progression, which is very rarely used, but for our purposes of explanation, it will be good. This fictional chord progression will be E major, F sharp major, and G sharp major. And what I just did now was a grave mistake because I just did parallel octaves and parallel 5ths. And according to the rules of counterpoint, this is forbidden. Not that it doesn't sound good, but according to those rules that they use to play their music, it is not high level. This is too. It's very hard to say, but if you listen to a lot of music like this, then it becomes a little bit cheap to solve these problems like this. So what we need to do is make contrary motion between the outer parts. I have the octave in the top here. I have the 5th on the top here, and I have a 3rd in the top here. And we have this beautiful contrary motion. So I think that this is why you always need to know which strings you are plucking and with what is the note at the top which you are playing. And you have to know it with all of the other chords as well, with the minors, with the inversions, with the first inversion of the chords, and also with the diminished. Okay, another other thing you have to know is suspensions, and the two major suspensions you have to know is the 4/3 and the 7/6. And I want to present you the 4/3 with this E major chord. This is basically substituting the third of the chord with the fourth compared to the bass. Then it's resolution to the third comes. And obviously after that comes the first degree, because usually these chords, these 4/3 chords, are on the fifth degree of the scale. Okay, so these are the basic things you should know, and this is something that you should also know in every chord, every position, and you have to know that which is the soprano, which part. It doesn't have to be in the soprano, it can be in another part. For example, like here, it's in the alto part, and thus we can play it in the alto. Okay, I'm sorry. So this is what you need to know about your instrument. It's a whole different topic, and it's a very, very deep topic if you want to dig into it. But I urge you to do it yourself, because it's a way to know your instrument even more, even deeper. And it's very helpful in sight reading, and also it's very helpful in memorizing pieces. So that's a very, very, very good topic to discuss with yourselves or with your teachers. Okay. The next thing I want to touch upon is the basic rules of Basso Continuo, and I'm going to do a very condensed version of Lodovico da Vianada's 100 concertici ecclesiastici. Sorry, one more time. 100 concerti ecclesiastici. I'm sorry, my Italian is terrible, so I probably butchered this title, but feel free to write in the comments that it was terrible. In the title, we can see these are 100 pieces, and there is a preface to these 100 pieces, and that contains 12 rules. And I'm just going to summarize some of the rules, not all of them, because some of them are advices to the singers, and some of them are advices to other players. So basically, the most important thing is that you are the accompanist. You should never cover the singer, because the singer is the one who sings the text, and the text is the heart and soul of early Baroque music. So if you cover up the singer, you cover the text, and you ruin the heart and soul of the music. That's this simple. Okay, another important thing to remember is that most of the time we think about these basso continuos and the 17th century players, that they saw a basso continuo and they could play it immediately. And it was probably the case that they could play it, but Viadana emphasizes that he prefers players who look into the piece beforehand and who write their own symbols into the continuo part of the piece. Because if you do this, then you will be able to really precisely follow the singer and don't play bad chords to the singer's part. So it's the most important when there is a possibility to play a root position chord and also a first inversion chord to the same bass note. And Viadana says that it's not always possible to decide only from looking at the bass. You have to look at the other parts, and you should write all the notes required in your part as just a help and clarification. And he even says that if you have the time and the resources, then you should really make a full realized accompaniment beforehand, and that is what you should use in practice in a concert. So they could do this improvised because they were extremely talented and extremely well versed in their own style, obviously because they lived then. But theoreticians and composers of the time advised that you should prepare beforehand, not just play on the spot. Okay, Another interesting thing I would like to mention is that, and I would like to show you a score as well, because this is best demonstrated using a score. Yes, yes, and this is the correct one. So this is a score from the Carlo G manuscript, and this score was made available in imslp.org. That sounded awful. imslp.org, and by Elam Hotem, who is an also awesome content creator on YouTube as well. I urge you to check him out because he makes early music as likable as it can possibly be. So the rule states that you have to adjust the number of accompaniment voices to the happenings in the music. And as you can see in this manuscript, where we have a written out chitarrone accompaniment, there is firstly a 5-part accompaniment, then after that a 3-part, a brief second a 2-part, and after that 4-part accompaniments. And this is very, very, very helpful to know that they thought about this very fluidly. It was not a strict stuff that you start in 4 parts, you finish in 4 parts. You have to adjust to the singer. Okay, so if you accompany, for example, an ensemble, then you should use all the strings on the guitar, and I would say even forget about the parallel octaves and fifths, because otherwise your continuo won't be audible at all. Okay, that was just a joke, but really you should use as much strings as possibly as it is possible. Okay, so the next rule which we are going to discuss is that sorry. Yes, okay. So is really what I have just talked about, that you can actually apply parallel fifths and octaves in your music. And as we can see in the same score, I will try to show it to you again. Yes, as we can see in the score, if we scroll down a little, he does just that. So here you can see the bass is moving down and the soprano is moving down in a parallel fifth, and the 2 bass notes are moving in parallel octaves. So what is the explanation? I have just told you that you have to think in counterpoint and you have to apply the rules of counterpoint to the music, and now I'm showing you places where the contemporary composers are using parallel fifths and octaves. What madness is this? The real explanation lies in that parallel fifths and octaves can be used when it is sort of covered up. And if you see, the bass is moving in a downward motion and the voice on the top of the soprano is moving in an upward motion. And that provides a little cover up for this parallel fifth. And also, you can imagine that this G is not continuing to this F, but the G stops and the E continues to the F. And this makes a contrary motion between your upper part and your bass as well. Obviously, if you show it to some music theoretician, he will point it out immediately that there is an apparent parallel fifth, but it's well hidden and it's not that audible if you play it in real music. Also, I would like to show you this piece. I'm sorry, scroll down the top. And it's Amarilli Mia Bella by Giulio Caccini, but the lute continuum was provided by Robert Dowland, who is the son of none other than John Dowland. So we can imagine that Robert was a very, very skilled musician. And what does he do? Parallel fifths here and parallel fifths here. Yes, he does it. But the same rule applies here. There is no parallel fifths between the outer parts. And here, where the middle parts are in parallel, the upper part is moving down and the lower part is moving up. Here, in the next parallel fifth, contrary motion as well. And there is no apparent parallels in the voice and the bass. So all of these cases can be solved with some kind of theoretical witchcraft. But the main takeaway is that if these parallels are not that audible and are covered up by the other voices, they are permissible if the chords are sounding full and they are working as a good accompaniment to the voice. Okay, and now let's go to our last point, talking topic, the doubling of the soprano. This is a very touchy subject. Every modern theoretician has their own take on it. And you should double the soprano. You should never double the soprano. You should avoid the soprano. Something like that always happens. But the real question, what does Viadana say about it? And what does the contemporary lute players say about it? So Viadana is essentially saying that you should always play the cadence at the place that the singer is playing it. For example, if and by cadence they don't mean the harmonic progression. So it's a harmonic progression cadence, but they mean the melodic progression. This is a melodic cadence. And obviously, this melodic cadence is inside the harmonic progression, but they were thinking about the music in terms of voices, and the harmonies are just consequences of these interacting voices. So that's just a side note. The real thing is that Viadana says that if a singer sings it in this part, then you should harmonize it like this. And I just made a small example from Viadana's music. If you're using this kind of technique, then you can see when the singer makes this cadence movement. I'm sorry, I'm not showing you the screen. I'm sharing now. Okay, yeah, now you see. So I made this small realization for the ending of one of Viadana's pieces. And at the end, you can see this formula, this cadence formula. And I realized it according to his rules. I'm playing it on the same octave as the singer plays it. Let's look at the Carlo G manuscript. What does he do? Wow, here is a cadence. It's a little bit hidden because there is an ornament, but you see the C, B natural C, and wow, in this place, we don't have it at the same octave. What is happening? The real thing that's happening here is that it's very instrument specific. Viadana talks about the organ, and you see the Carlo G manuscript has a keyboard accompaniment as well, and the keyboard accompaniment follows the soprano perfectly. Obviously not the little ornaments, but otherwise it follows the soprano, and even at the cadences, he plays the right cadences at the exact position. But the lute player almost never does that. There are some cases where he does that, but yeah, for example, here there's one rare case that he does the same movement as the soprano, but usually, I'm sorry, we have previous. I'm sorry, I lost track, but let's look at Robert Dowland's version, which is even more interesting, because when he have a leading note in the higher position, he omits it from the accompaniment altogether. And that is also something that's said by contemporary theoreticians, especially Agostino Agazzari. He said that you should avoid the notes of the soprano. And when there are notes which are dissensitive leading notes, Robert Dowland avoids them altogether. And you can see it throughout his piece. When there is this leading note in the soprano, he leaves them completely alone. There's only one exception, and it's here, where there's a cry out in a very high register compared to the other parts of the piece. And here he makes a full chord. And I think the meaning of this full chord here is that when the music is so strong, you cannot leave out any notes. You have to use as many notes as you can possibly can to provide support. So, what have we learned today? We learned that there are certain rules of this era that are very, very much applicable to keyboard music, but are a little bit different for our instrument. And I think a general rule that you can follow and you can implement is that whenever you try to realize something like this, an accompaniment in this style, you should always aim for one position lower than the singer. And by one position, I mean, in a case, for example, in our well-known E major chord, if the soprano or the voice sings G sharp, in the position is that the third is on the soprano, then you should play a chord one position lower and follow along the melody line of the voice. So if the voice moves higher and higher up, you should always follow the melodic progression of the voice, but with one or even sometimes two positions lower, because otherwise there will be very difficult stuff on the guitar to play. And you could say, oh, of course it's difficult, try to avoid it because we are not good players. That's not the point. The point is that you should sound very natural, and you have to play things that are natural on your instrument. This kind of music is all about emphasizing the singer. And if everybody listens to you playing on the highest registers possible and dying in front of the audience, then the real meaning of the music dies as well, because the text and the melodic line of the singer is the heart and soul of this kind of music. So that's why I urge you to follow the melodic line in order to create a very high quality accompaniment. Also, try to use the general rules of counterpoint. If there is a motion in one direction, then you should aim for another kind of motion in the other parts. And that's a basic rule of thumb. Obviously, it's not applicable everywhere, and there will be countless examples where this rule does not work. But generally speaking, I think it's a good starting point. And with this, I would like to conclude my short lecture, and I hope I raised your curiosity a little bit about this music. I suggest you to check out Ilham Rotem on YouTube, and also he has his extremely great website. He has a dissertation about this kind of music, which is also very good. I want to emphasize that if you are interested in this kind of music, this Basso Continuo, then you cannot avoid Frank Thomas Arnold's The Art of Accompaniment from a Thorough Bass. This is a must-have for everyone who wants to play from this kind of Basso Continuo pieces. And I urge you to read Viadana's and Agazzari's and the other contemporary theoreticians' works, because they are also very fun to read with a modern eye, and they are very informative in a way. And also, I would like to thank him. Sorry, just a moment. I'm very bad at names, so I'm not letting this slide away. Maybe I am. I have to tell you one name. Bernard Lang. Yeah. He's the one who made translations from these texts from the 17th century, which are very, very helpful for me, because I speak Italian, but that's not my best language. As you can see, English isn't as well. But he made translations, and I will provide it to you so you can learn from this stuff as well. So with that said, I would like to wish you a great day, and I hope to see as much of you as possible in the next festival in real life. So goodbye, have a nice day, and take care.